one aspect, I'm working on Mitch's project here, his legs. You know, I was just going to sand these and I was going to go on to the next step for you guys. But I think one aspect that I skip a lot in the woods courses that we have is the sanding. Just because, you know, it seemed to me like you would have learned that in middle school, and that's not always the case. I don't like to use an electric sander. If I have large surfaces, I'll use an electric sander. A surface like this, I'll even just use a hand sander for that. But right here we have the legs that he made. So we have, this is obviously one of the front legs. That's where the bottom mortise goes across. The drawer goes in between these two, and the top is where that dovetail piece fits into. So on here we can see what we have. We have some pencil lines on there. We have burn marks on here from the table saw, because this is one of the sides that we tapered at an angle here on that inside edge there. So I want to go through sanding this thing. I'll do one leg with you and show you how it's done. So I have my bench vise here. I'm going to tilt this a little bit so you can see a little bit. Here's my bench vise. And if you see on the end here, I have this little dog that clicks up and down. All the bench vices at school have that also. All good bench vices have that. I also have this little tapered dowel that I set into these holes here to hold the ends of the pieces. So I'm going to have my smaller end, the bottom of the leg, this direction. And I'll bring this back out. And I will hook my stopper up to that. Now, this is the end that has the dovetail on the end there, so I'm trying to fashion it that it gets into that dovetail if possible. Looks like it's not working great, so I'm going to have to do this a little bit differently than I would normally. So I want to have something that's going to hold that back there, but it's not going to. You see what I'm trying to bite onto there. So maybe what I'll do is I'll take a small piece of scrap. Find one here. Just scrap here. Lift this higher. And I'm going to do this backwards. So I'm going to have this part here so it sits against that large flat area rather than this thing trying to go inside of it. So let me just show you why I did that in case you weren't sure. I have that dovetail mortise in there, so I don't want to smash the edges of that, so I put this board across. Okay, so now here's my end, and it's locked in there now well enough that I can go ahead and sand. I have a 150 grit, I have a 120 grit, and I have a 220 grit. So I'm going to start with my 120. I'm going to start because I have used it already. I'm going to tap out anything that's kind of embedded in the stones there to begin with. And this is one of my sides. It says on the side here, no taper. So this is a flat surface. So I can go ahead and sand all the way down across this thing. And the motion is a lot like using a hand plane. For some people, they don't know what they've sanded and not sanded. So it might be helpful just to scratch some lines on here. I just take a pencil and on its edge, just put some little tick marks on there. Not with the tip of the pencil, not with the pencil facing up and down, because you're going to dent the wood more likely there. Just on the side of it, just to give yourself some kind of visual reference that says, all right, I'm done. Okay, so that's my 120. Now I go 150. And I also want to wipe this off. Take my brush here. Wipe that off to get all that grit off there. $150, $220. Okay, last thing with the 220 is what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it right along the corners there. A little bit of pressure behind it. And what that does is, as you're going down, you'll feel it kind of breaking fibers. And then I'm not trying to put a round on the edges here. I'm just trying to put a little break on the edge there, dumb it over so I don't get splinters. So now I'm going to flip it So you can see that the mortise side here is going to be facing up. It's going to be the one that I sand. So that tells me that I'm looking at a surface that is not a flat slope. Okay, so this side here, what I'm looking at is, I'm looking at an angle and then a flat. So they're two different surfaces. So I want to pay respect to that. So I'll do my 120 and I'll get my flat surface first. It's supposed to be that it's flat and then comes at an angle. So there's an angle right here. And that's supposed to stay there. It's not supposed to get rounded over. And now I'll do this large flat section. You can see there's a big burr in the middle here. You know, a lot of people skip these steps because they feel like the woodworking is just like being able to figure out the cuts and make the right depths and so forth. But this is a part that I have an expectation that students are going to spend some time on. And it takes, you know, depending on the project, it could take two periods to do an adequate sanding job to everything. But if I would have just never done a video on this and moved on to the next step, this would have just been glossed over. So I didn't want to do that. So there's my 120. Wipe that off. 150. Then go up to the flat part. Okay. Wipe that off. 220. Feels good. Now we have the front part here, which I also will remember that there's a flat and an angle to this one here. I get this video is boring, okay? I get that a lot of people think of sanding as kind of not part of the job, but it absolutely is, okay? Just like any job that I work on in my house, the priming and the painting and using, all that's part of the job. Otherwise, it doesn't get done. So this is an aspect of what we're doing here. On 50. $220. Cut the corners. And we have one more, the fourth one, which is a flat one again. $120. $150. See the heavier grits, like 120, 80, they're putting scratches in it. You know, they're not like the end all. So those heavier grits, they're removing some of the major things on this, but they're still leaving scratches. They've got big stones embedded in the paper here. So if I were not to brush it after each grit there, I mean, there's a possibility that some of those stones will be still laying on top of the surface of what I'm sanding. So I'm sanding with the same stuff again under my finer grit sandpaper. So I brush it off. .220. So now I give it the test to feel it and see, did I get everything? Did the corners feel real nice? Okay, and that's a well sanded leg that's going to go together there. So I have 2 of them done. I'm not going to force you to watch the rest, but at this point in the video, I'm at 11 minutes. So that leg took me, if I wasn't talking, it took me about 7 minutes to do. You know, so I have these 2 legs to do yet. I have the aprons to do yet. And I will do those the same way I've been doing the rest of it. I'm not going to use any power saws or power sanders. I don't want the dust all over the place. I want to be able to play on music. And bottom line is, it's a better job. You don't run the risk of getting any curly cues in the sanding. Okay?